Today, my friends, we're talking about Sony Telephoto lenses, the big guys, the 150 to 500s, the 200 to 600s, the 100 to 400s, the big sports and wildlife lenses, the birding lenses for Sony E mount cameras. We have several options available now, so in this video, I thought I'd throw together kind of a comparison or overview so that you can start getting a few lenses on a short list if you're thinking about pulling the trigger anytime soon. So the first lens that we're going to check out is the Sigma 100 to 400. This is the DGDN. Second, we've got the Tamron 150 to 500. This is a newer lens from Tamron, great performing, middle of the range, and a budget third-party option. And of course, we've got the native Sony 100 to 400 G Master and the big guy, the 200 to 600 G lens. But we're going to compare them all and give you an idea about which one you might want to be considering based on your needs. So let's get going here, guys. Firstly, who am I? My name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this type of content and you like this video, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. So let's dive in first and talk about the Sigma. Now this is a lens coming in at about $899 US. This is a great lens for anybody just starting or thinking about getting into wildlife or sports, strictly for the price point. Now, if budget is the biggest consideration, this is really a no-brainer. Absolutely go for this lens. Although performance-wise and autofocus-wise, it's not going to be the best performer, it's going to be adequate for a lot of beginner to intermediate shooters, and it can absolutely get away with professional work. So, as far as the Sigma goes, let's dive in and have a bit of a closer look. Okay, let's dive in and have a look at what's in the box. And do keep in mind that this is Sigma's contemporary line, it's not the art line, and all you're going to find is a bit of paperwork and the lens and a lens hood. No case, no fancy anything else, that's it, just the lens. For what it is, it's a decent size and weight, measuring 10 1/4 inches with the lens hood installed, 13 1/4 fully extended, and only 7 3/4 without. It weighs in at just about exactly 2.5 pounds, meaning that it's quite reasonable for you to take it traveling or hiking or whatever you're going to do with it. It's also got a zoom lock switch as well as a few other conveniences, including an automatic manual focus switch, a zoom limiting switch, a focus hold button, and a mode selector for your image stabilization. Of course, it does extend as it zooms, but it is a well-balanced lens with most of the weight towards the back of the lens. There is a tripod collar for this lens, but unfortunately it's sold separately, and honestly I really recommend getting it for stability, as when you throw this thing on a tripod at longer distances and lower shutter speeds, you're definitely going to have some shake. The manual focus ring turns quite easily, and its performance is nothing to write home about, although you can dial it in to your liking using Sigma's dock. However, it's also sold at an additional cost. On the front, you'll find 67mm filter threads, along with Sigma's proprietary coatings to help with ghosting and flare. On the back, a nice heavy-duty metal mount with a very small and thin rubber gasket, but hey, it's there, so it is technically weather sealed. This lens is definitely reminiscent of my old 150 to 600, which was one of my first really serious lenses, and a telephoto that really served me well along with the MC11 when I switched over to Sony. However, being a native lens now, it's going to perform a lot better than something adapted. Here's a few of my favorite shots that I've taken with this lens to show you just how versatile it really is. And that's probably my favorite thing about the 100 to 400 focal length. You can pretty much bring it anywhere. It's discreet and light enough to travel with, and it's more than capable for wildlife and my friends the birds. But is it good for anything else? Of course it is. It's great for landscape, environmental portraits, and because this lens is so sharp, you don't have to be scared of shooting the details. If you're wondering how close you're going to be able to get to your subjects, this lens does have a variable minimum focus distance. On the wide end, it's about 112 centimeters or 44 inches or so, and when you zoom in, the telephoto side of things is going to be about 63 inches or about 5 1/4 feet. So it's not quite as good as the G Master per se, but you can get in and get some decently close-looking shots on your subjects. With 9 aperture blades, the bokeh and background separation of this lens is actually quite nice for me, but let me know what you think down in the comments. So what else can it do? Can it shoot portraits? Sure it can, and you're going to get some really nice compression at those longer focal ranges. It really is a versatile and do-it-all lens if you ask me. Next up, let's have a look at the Tamron. The newer Tamron 150 to 500 is a great option. It's a third-party option, and they do give you a fantastic warranty opposed to the Sonys, which typically you only get about 1 year. So this Tamron is a great performer. Optically, it's batting way out of its price point, and it does have some standout features. Now, these two third-party lenses do have some limitations that we're gonna go over here in a second, but let's dive in and have a closer look now at the Tamron. So the overall size for what this lens is quite good. With the lens hood installed not extended, this lens measures 10 3/8 inches long, and fully extended it goes out to 13 3/8 inches long. With the lens hood off for travel, it measures 8 1/4 inches long, and fully extended it measures 11 1/4 inches long. So not bad for a 500mm telephoto lens. The mentioned adjustable tripod collar is lightweight and Arca-Swiss compatible, and I love to see this included from Tamron, something that you don't get with the comparable Sigma 100 to 400. As far as buttons and switches are concerned, you do get a focus limiting switch, an automatic manual focus switch, an image stabilization on and off switch, and of course a 3-mode selector switch depending on what you're shooting. There is also a zoom lock switch, but only available to use at 150mm or completely unzoomed. But you do have the option to lock at any focal length by pulling up a little bit on the zoom ring. As expected, this lens does extend as it zooms, but does have a nice quick quarter turn throw, allowing you to have quick target acquisition from 150 all the way up to 500. The grippy zoom and focus rings turn easily and accurately. On the front, you'll find 82mm filter threads, as well as Tamron's patented coatings to help with ghosting and flare. Inside, you'll find an optical construction of 25 elements in 16 groups featuring low dispersion, extra low dispersion, as well as hybrid aspherical elements. These all of course help with its impressive optical quality, but do add some weight to the lens, and overall it does weigh in at 1728 grams, or about 3.8 pounds. On the back, you'll find a sturdy metal mount with a nice little rubber gasket for additional weather sealing, and Tamron has gone above and beyond to make sure that this lens is well weather sealed, and so far I can vouch for this lens in a lot of nasty conditions, as well as just about every other Tamron in the lineup. Overall, for what it is, the build is actually very good, all the bells and whistles that you're looking for, and not much that you're not. Once again, here are some photo examples that I've taken with this lens. In terms of optical quality and sharpness, this lens is very impressive. Even in the corners, it kind of blew me away. Now, this is a step above in terms of optics over the Sigma for sure, and very comparable to the Sonys. I did want to touch on the minimum focus distance of this lens, which is variable, but a bit unique. Now, for a super telephoto lens, being able to shoot your subject 2 feet away is quite impressive, and you can get some macro looking shots at 150mm. But as you increase that focal length, you are going to have to step back considerably. So on the wide end, you are able to get pretty close, but on the telephoto side of things, it's pretty average. And this is a good time to talk about some of the limitations of the third-party lenses. Unfortunately, with the Tamron and the Sigma, you won't be able to use a teleconverter, where there is a 1.4 and a 2x teleconverter available for the Sonys. They're also capped at 15 frames per second shooting speed, so if you are using something like the A9 or the new A1, do be aware of that limitation. It will struggle to keep up with the fastest subjects like birds in flight, just like the Sigma will, so if you are needing the utmost performance, the native Sonys are definitely going to be your go-to. So next up, we've got my go-to for telephoto for the most part, and that's the Sony 100 to 400 G Master. It is a flexible, awesome lens, and it also has the ability, like the 200 to 600, to throw on a teleconverter, either a 1.4 or a 2x teleconverter, and that is phenomenal, making it one of the most flexible lenses out there. Now, it is very expensive, but if you do follow the channel, you know that I picked it up secondhand, and I can actually sell it right now for more than I bought it for. So these lenses do really hold their value, and G Master, of course, are just phenomenal in terms of optics and performance. So in terms of the G Master, let's dive in and have a closer look at this guy. At full extension with the lens hood installed, it measures about 14 inches long. Take off the lens hood for about a 3-inch reduction, which is about what you're looking at with the lens hood on with no zoom extension. And when traveling without the lens hood on, you're looking at only about 8 inches. Overall, it's a great size for me and never really feels intrusive. It's also a decent weight at only 1,395 grams, or just over 3 pounds. The nice big grippy and intuitive focus and zoom ring turn nicely and confidently. And of course this lens does extend as it zooms, but you won't find a lock switch. Instead, Sony's opted to include a unique zoom sensitivity dial, letting you choose a smooth or a tight throw, depending on the feel you like. There's also several convenient buttons and switches to help you out, including an automatic manual focus switch, a focus limiter switch, your optical steady shot on and off, as well as a mode 1 and 2 switch. One feature that I would have loved to see included in this lens is a manual focus override setting. It's not a huge deal, but it's really nice to have that ability when there's a bird in a tree or something that you just need that extra little bit of confidence when it comes to manual focus quickly. It does, however, have not 1 or 2, but 3 customizable buttons to help you out with whatever you're looking for. On the front, you'll find 77mm filter threads, as well as Sony's AR nano coating, which helps with ghosting and flaring. On the back, you'll find a nice sturdy metal mount, as well as a fantastic little rubber gasket for confidence when it comes to weather sealing. In terms of autofocus and optical performance, this lens is incredible. I'm constantly amazed by this thing and just whipping my camera around to capture whatever might be heading my way. It acquires focus and captures whatever I'm looking for instantly. And not to bash my old adapted Sigma 150-600, which did serve me well for years, but upgrading to this thing is like entering another universe. So yeah, it's got phenomenal autofocus, but let's talk about another huge factor in me choosing this lens, and that's the minimum focus distance. At just over 3 feet, this lens can produce some incredible macro-like shots, making it one of the most versatile extreme telephoto lenses out there. With your typical long-range lenses, you can expect between a 7 and 9 foot minimum focus distance on average, so to have a lens that performs this well inside a meter and still has some decent reach is fantastic. If budget's not a concern, I would strongly recommend this lens, but if you're only into birding and need the most reach possible, consider our next lens on the list. Finally, we got the big guy, the 200-600 Sony G lens. Now this is the birding lens. If you are just completely obsessed with birds and that's pretty much all you're gonna shoot, well, there's just really no replacement. This is the furthest reaching lens that you're gonna pretty much get and the most versatile without getting into the crazy expensive and fast primes that we're really not gonna talk about because most people can't afford them and I really don't have much experience with them. So as far as the 200-600 is concerned, it is internally zooming and focusing. It is a phenomenal build. It's very big and heavy, but it is the biggest and the best for reach for birds as far as I'm concerned. So really consider that strongly, and of course you're going to have the access to the teleconverters so you can get way out there. Now this lens does come in at about $2,000 US. It's not cheap, but it has a ton of value. So having said all that, let's dive in and have a look at the 200-600 in action. The lens itself is a great construction, really solid feeling. It's also massive and weighs a lot. It's not for the faint of heart for sure. With the lens hood installed, it measures 15 3/4 inches long and 12.5 without. But do note that this lens does not extend as you zoom. It's completely internally focusing and zooming, so what you see is what you get. As far as its exact weight, it weighs just under 5 pounds. Now as far as this lens's features are concerned, it does have an automatic manual focus switch, a focus and limiting switch, of course optical steady shot or image stabilization, and a mode selector switch depending on what you're shooting. Probably my favorite thing about this lens is its quick throw. To be able to zoom from 200 to 600 millimeters in a blink of an eye at a quarter turn is just a total game changer, and it's fantastic for target acquisition. The big grippy focus ring turns easily and quickly, and unfortunately it doesn't have full-time manual focus override. But for the most part, because it's so good, I find myself using autofocus for the vast majority of shots. It does have 3 customizable focus hold buttons located on the top, the left, and the bottom of the lens. Also included is an easily adjustable and removable tripod collar, and this is great for when you want to set up on a tripod to get some really steady shots. On the front of the lens, you'll find a massive front element as well as 95mm filter threads. On the back, you'll find a nice confident metal mount with the inclusion of a little rubber gasket for weather sealing confidence. And I have to say that I am more confident taking this lens out into the weather over say my 100-400 go-to, and that's mainly because of its internal zooming. There's just less to go wrong. Overall, it's a very well put together lens, especially for a G series lens. It will keep up with the fastest camera bodies, utilizing active track and shooting at insanely fast speeds. Here we are shooting on the a6100 in a Sony APS-C camera, but of course this is a full frame lens. By putting it on an APS-C, you'll be able to utilize the crop factor, making it a 900mm equivalent. Here's a few more shots that I've taken with this lens. Now it is worth noting that you can of course use the 1.4 and 2x teleconverters. However, in most cases I recommend sticking with the 1.4. Any more than that and you are pushing it, you're going to sacrifice some image quality, autofocus capabilities, and of course you're sacrificing the amount of light you're working with. One unavoidable downside for a lens like this is its minimum focus distance. In this case, it's just shy of 8 feet, which does limit you to what you can shoot if birds come close, or you're trying to shoot something that's, well, less than 8 feet away. Definitely something to consider if you do shoot things that aren't at a huge distance away all the time. One of the main limitations of this lens. Overall, a very well put together lens with great build quality, image quality, and just about everything else you could ask for. So there you have it. There's 4 Sony Telephoto lenses right now that you could pretty much strongly consider. They're all great for what they are, and it's going to be kind of tough to choose. Let's kind of break it down really quickly. If you're on a budget and money is the biggest consideration, well, go with the Sigma 100-400, but know that unfortunately, like the Tamron, you're not going to be able to use teleconverters, and you will be capped at 15 frames per second. So if you're shooting with like an A9 or an A1, that's a little unfortunate. But there you go. For the money, what do you expect? The Tamron, the 150-500 is also a great option. Optically, it's absolutely amazing for what it is. But again, you're gonna be limited by the teleconverter thing. But yeah, all around great lens, great price point at $1,399 US, and great value and warranty. Now the G Master, of course, it is the most expensive on this list, and for good reason. It's a great performing lens through every aperture, through every focal length. It's light for what it is, and it has an amazing minimum focus distance, like I said. So if you have the money, I would definitely recommend this to pretty much anybody. One of my best and most favorite travel lenses of all time. And then there's the Sony 200-600, which is the birding lens, the go-to birding lens, unless you've got 15 grand to drop on the 600 f4. This is a perfect lens for birders, and you can also throw on the teleconverters, of course. At $2,000 US, it has a ton of value, and I don't think it's really gonna lose much value, if any really, because these lenses these days are just going for crazy prices on secondhand and whatnot. So there's my breakdown, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video and it helped you out. If it did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you didn't like this video, let me know why and how I can improve. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.